Hi, my name is Smoothie King, and I'm the Sazabi player for Serenity, the current fourth best team on the Side 7 server. If you're playing in the upcoming Rising Stars tournament, that's the team to beat. I'm not sure how the subsequent Legends Reborn tournament is going to play out. Either it will be like last time, where there are four pre approved teams, and the top four from Rising Stars compete against them in an 8-man bracket, or they might just do a 4-man bracket where I fight all of you off in Rising Stars. It seems to be subjective, but I may or may not have to fight for my fourth place slot. uh, you know, I'm beating around the bush here, but mods hate me. Anyways, what this video is about is the LFT posts. I took all of the North American LFT posts and put them into this nice chart right here. If you are forming a team, this is a pretty useful resource, and it has been updated today with a post that was made minutes ago. I did not go as far up to the, like the top of all the LFT posts. The posts above the first one I've listed looked like they were outdated, but there are 30 players right here. So, in principle, you could make 5 teams. In practice, you could maybe make at least 4 teams out of this. So, I think it's a good thing to make a video on. Um, Before I get into the players that are right here, I would like to talk about the roles that I've loosely color coded. The first role is easily the most important. You want rifles. You want to be able to run at least 3 rifles at once. There are maps that more or less demand that you run double flyers. And as far as just the Rising Stars tournament goes, I don't think adhering to the meta is that important. But basically, Ashimar and Zeta can just fly straight up like hot air balloons, start shooting at people, fall down, and repeat. And if your team has one Ashimar and the enemy team has an Ashimar and a Zeta, there's nothing like a shield that's going to stop Zeta from building up Biosensor, and Ashimar is just going to be woefully outnumbered. They will not have enough bullets to chew through a Zeta shield and a Zeta and an enemy Ash, and you lose those maps pretty handily if you aren't running double flyers, in my opinion. Um, Rifles are very important. You always want rifles. You need people who can shoot flyers down, and that usually means you are running Pale, you are usually running Ash, and if the map is a double flyer map, you are probably also running Zeta. The Japanese team is definitely a fan of Gundam, but I will say the Japanese team, they're demons. They play flak outside the house. And as far as like the top 3 teams above me, which would be Asor's team, the JP team, and then Expo's team, they rely the most on just being demons and typically the least on map knowledge, with the exception being maybe Ministry, where they fought Expo's team to a draw, and then Cool Cheese told everyone else on that team that they just don't know how to play Ministry. Um, but they do weird stuff. They run Gundam instead of Pale sometimes. They run GM instead of Saz sometimes. But, they do run Saz on Ministry, so I'll not get into that. I'm just going to be generous and say that Gundam and GM are within the meta. And basically, you want the ability to run double flyers, and you want either a Pale or a Gundam as a third rifle. And that's that. So, moving on, shields. You pretty much always want a Sazabi, but the JP team definitely gets by with GM. Hyperion is not a bad character by any means. I would definitely say Hyperion is within the meta on certain maps, but they are a second shield. Their bubble functions as a stun catcher, so you can basically grab hyper hammers to stop them from hitting your Sazabi. And, they synergize well with GM too. GM's healing grenade stops working if anyone under its effect takes damage, so being able to block damage on groups with Hype's bubble helps that grenade function. And even just Hyperion's personal shield can be used to block damage and stop the grenade from getting shut off by gunfire. Definitely a very good support shield, but not a main shield, not something you would run without already having another shield on your team. Hyperion might be used in an environment where you have to cross a choke and block in multiple directions, or where again you need to catch a stun or you need to catch splash projectiles and reduce their multi-hit damage to just single hit damage on the bubble. The next category would be supports, and that basically means Dom. You want a Dom on your team, and the rest of these characters do not really matter. Snipers like GM Sniper or Dynamis can definitely be better than Dom on maps like Harbor, where long sightlines mean slow moving projectiles are not as useful as sniper rifles. But Harbor isn't in the current map pool, and even if it were, you can always ban at least Harbor. Like, you can ban one map. You don't technically need snipers. The main difference between these characters and shields are that shields control space in their proximity, so you put them on the point, whereas these characters control space at a distance, so they might be far away or on high ground, where you force people to chase objectives other than the point, and basically you waste their mobility by forcing them to treat you as an alternative objective. Dom is definitely the best in slot for this. Dom's armor gun gives people armor, which stops incoming damage from generating ult, something not a lot of people know about. And in addition to that, Dom kind of has the best ult in the game, to say nothing of his bazooka or his mines, which can be thrown on health ups rather easily. Um, Really, he just overall makes such a huge economic impact, and his ult is so incredibly great for breaking through choke points. You still need shields to generate score, and you still want rifles to shoot flyers and, help Dom get up to high ground, but this is definitely an essential role. The next two roles are shorties, so Zaku Ranged and Camphor. They are the triple dashers who have long dashes, unlike Barbados and Exia. And then that leaves melee characters, which includes Barbados, Exia, Zaku Melee, and Susanoo. I would say that on pretty much any bomb map, Zaku Ranged is meta. Zaku can very easily beam someone who's trying to defuse a bomb, and he has double headshot damage, unlike Camphor, which is only 1.5 and takes a while to click each shot. Zaku will kill them in the least amount of time possible, and if he really wants to, he can spend his escape tool, Smoke, aggressively to walk up to a bomb site without dying, and then he just starts strafing before his smoke ends, and the enemy has to shoot a strafing Zaku, whereas the Zaku has to shoot an anchored target who's disarming a bomb. Even if there's a shield in the way, Zaku has a knockoff Ashimar ult to break the shield with, or, stun them at least. And this reloads his gun. It's just, this character can stop so many consecutive disarm attempts that you can't not run this character. Camphor, on the other hand, doesn't have smoke and he doesn't get fuel from shooting shields. If you're pairing Camphor with Barbados, this is nice because Camphor can slow targets down and Barbados can catch them. Barbados can get rid of Sazabi, who is pretty much a dead end for Camphor that will just soak up all of his shotgun ammo and give him no fuel in return. Camphor's slows can also give Susanoo bonus damage, but I don't think this synergy is as good as Susanoo's synergy with Zaku Ranged. It's much easier to have a Zaku Ranged who plays off of Susanoo's slows and scores fat headshot damage to convert into armor than it is to have a Camphor who has a Susanoo playing off of them. The smoke ability on Zaku is also very good because as soon as you've generated a bunch of armor by giving Susanoo assists, you can smoke and leave, and everyone is forced to point their guns at an armored Susanoo, as opposed to Camphor, who might end up dying even if Susanoo is very heavily armored, or who might end up dying if you're pairing it with a Zaku who's going to smoke and leave Camphor behind. I would definitely say my character ships are Z2R and Sus, and then Camphor and Barb, but you can't ban every Z2R map. Pale, Ashimar, Sazabi, Dom, Zaku Ranged, and then Zeta if it's a double flyer map, or Susanoo if it's not, are probably the most important 7 characters to run in the game. That could also be just, 6 people if your Zeta and your Susanoo player are the same person. Your Z2R could have a backup rifle they play, but they probably don't want it to be Zeta because you want to run those two characters on the same map sometimes. That brings me to the actual players on this list, though. The first player is Jay Zumi. He only plays Zaku ranged. That's perfectly viable. You're not going to run him on every map, so I mean, you want 7 people on that team, but you're allowed to have 8. So, you're not going to ban every Z2R map. You want someone who plays that character, and that's enough. Um, After that, we have Timberdoodle. Anyone who said that they would just flex and play any role, I colored their answers in white. But Timberdoodle said they're a Marasai main, so I didn't color that one in. I do want to point out that there are only 2 players aside from the flex players who said they would play Dom, and that is a massive bottleneck in terms of like the teams you can create. There's also only one player who I recognize as a Barbados player, and that would be Heroic Sandwich, but they didn't even list Barb in their characters, which is strange. After Timberdoodle, we have Error, who I believe is pretty good. They're willing to play their main hit scans. Let's try this again. After Timberdoodle, we have Error, who's willing to play hit scans. They're pretty good. You want a good hit scan player on your team, and they're willing to play Z2R if you have someone else who can play hit scans. We have Pablo Sanchez, who can play Zeta when you need Zeta. Both of these guys will play GM, but no one said they were going to play Barb, so I wouldn't really worry about it. Heroic Sandwich. Again, this guy probably can play Barb, and he just doesn't list it. But he'll play Ashamar if you need an Ashamar. He'll play New if you need a New. Zrex says they'll play Ashamar. They say they'll play Unicorn, which is definitely a very good character. And they say they'll play Saz, which is like having a Saz on your team is so much more important than like having a good Saz on your team, if I'm being honest. You don't really need to be. It's not like hit scans. Like, you want your best players on hit scans. Anyone else can play Saz if they're just not dumb. Um, Zoc Zealot says they will play Pale, Gundam, Turn A, Marasai. They'll play hit scans for you, and they'll play Z2R on maps where you need Z2R. Um, if you think they're better than, your other hit scan player, like we'll say Error for example, you probably put them on Z2R and you probably put someone else on the long range hit scan. But I mean, really, either way, it works. The next 2 players both said they would flex as just about any role except for melees. Big Toe says they will play Zaku melee if they want, which I think is sort of a form of naivete because they told me Z2M is easier for them to play than Susanoo. That's an incredibly hot take. But they are already on a team with Beat Screeper, who is the next player on this list. Beat Screeper will probably want to play Pale, but they'll play Pale, Gundam, Uni, hit scans in general. And they're one of the 2 players who says they will play Dom. So, that's probably going to be one of the better teams. Duram Boros has said they will only play Gundam. I've seen that guy play Z2R though. Um, you can probably get him to play Z2R. Dingus Punch just said that they're a flex. I don't think they have a character they're enthusiastic about. Phantom has said they will play Gundam and New and Hyperion, which is, I mean, that's a good choice. Millie Dish is definitely a player with tournament experience, and they have said they will flex anything except for snipers and non-Susanoo melee characters. Um, I don't think that's because they fancy themselves a Susanoo main. I think that's just because they think Susanoo's meta and they don't want to be on a team that favors a different character. But either way, they definitely have played in tournaments before. They've been on a number of teams. Next is Blex, not to be confused with Zrex. They say they'll play Unicorn, and they will play Zaku ranged, and they will play Camphor. and apparently they will also play Zaku Melee. Um, Unicorn is a pretty good character. You're not going to run them on every map, but you do need someone who plays Zaku ranged, and a rifle replacement is a good alternative for them to possess. Sils Snow says they will play Marasai, who, I mean, they're a rifle, and they'll play Sazabi if you need a Saz. This is only the second Saz player I've mentioned so far who isn't just a flex that's willing to play it, so that's reassuring. And if somehow you have someone who's willing to take their spot on Saz, they can play Z2R on Z2R maps. After that, we have Swedish Corgi, a flex player who claims to be a 1000 hour TF2 sniper main and doesn't give a lot of other info. I mean, they're probably just like a good player if you want another main hit scan player. After that, we have Just Wolf, who is someone I recognize as a Z2R player. Definitely a very good, worthwhile player to pick up, and they will play Pale if you need Pale. The only downside is that, they can't play Pale and Z2R at the same time. Blue Boy is a side 7 regular. He plays Gundam, he plays Zeta, but he's most known for playing Hyperion, which is sort of a circumstantial pick. He has a buddy who plays Barbados who might join this tournament. Their name is Shazam. They've contacted me and asked me about this. So that might be the second Barbados player on this list, bundled with Blue Boy. After that, we have Akio, who says they are a Marasai and Sazabi player. So very similar to Sil Snow, except they aren't willing to play Z2R, which again isn't a big deal if you're sticking them in Saz jail the whole time. Kyowo is definitely someone I recognize from live service. They are definitely someone with tournament experience. And for some reason, they didn't list their main in the characters they play. They are a well known Marasai main, but they claim they just want to play for vibes. And they only listed snipers. So, I don't know. Ask them about that. But probably, like, hands down the best Marasai on this list. No question. Ben Tendom says they will play Gundam Mara. They say they'll play GM if you want to run a GM comp. Maybe one of those Saz players says, I want to take a break from playing Shield, let me play Z2R, and you put Ben Tendom on GM. I don't know. But they will also play Dom. Wait, no, that's Toast the World. You would think if someone had Dom in their name, they would really play Dom. But no, the next player to play this character is Toast the World. And they also say they'll play GM, but, like, I don't think this guy is getting out of Dom jail if he wants to play Dom. The only reason to swap to GM is because, like, you want to screw over an enemy Barbados, but one, there aren't Barbs on this list, and two, Dom is one of Barb's worst matchups. So, like, unless you have a Sazabi who is taking your place on Dom, that this doesn't really make sense. That dude is in Dom jail. After that, we have Uncle Jim. They say they'll play Ash, which is a pretty important hit scan. They say they'll play Turn A and Unicorn, but they are the only player on this list who will play both Saz and GM aside from the flex players. So if you do run into a Barb, that can be a very nasty switch to put on them. Asterith says they will play hit scans and Saz. Mugen says pretty much the same. They'll play hit scans and Saz. Um, Confirmed is a huge name on this list. I've seen this guy Susanoo. He's probably the best Susanoo on this list, hands down. And if Harbor were legal, he'll play Dynamis on Harbor defense. Like, this is a really good pick. The only downside is that if he's better than everyone else on your team, he might end up in Pale Jail anyways. As for the last three names, we have Namastang, who says they will play a couple of hit scans, including Gundam. They'll play Saz if you want to stick them in Saz jail. Mitakuni, who says they will play Pale or Gundam, both good characters. They'll play Uni, good character. They'll play GM if you want to run a GM comp. They'll play Sniper. I don't think Heavy Arms is that important to mention. Frosty Echoes was the last player to put themselves on the list. They say they will play pretty much any of the three big hit scans. They won't play Zeta, but they will play Marasai, and they'll play GM if you want to run a GM comp. In all likelihood, I think what you really want if you're trying to make a good team on this list is to just figure out which ones of these players are good, and then pick those guys for hit scans, and then go back and pick your shields, and then snag whoever the hell is willing to play Dom for you, and then a Z2R. Um, Only one of you is going to be able to pick up Confirmed, who's, again, very good Susanoo, and he's going to eat some noobs this tournament. But there might be some Barbados players who come out of the woodwork. There might be some more Susanoo players, and maybe some of these weird guys who have their own unique melee picks form a good team. Like my team runs a Zaku melee, and it doesn't work on every map, but when it works, it works. If you are a flex player and it's not because you're really comfortable flexing, but because you just don't know what character you want to play, you're a Dom main now. You have loved Dom ever since you were a little boy. You have Dom's heart between your lungs, and your lungs, they're Dom's lungs. You love Dom. Um, with all due respect to Dom mains, Dom does not take that much skill to play. His laser is, yes, a tracking weapon, but it's not a headshot weapon. Um, all of the Dom coaches in training general, like they're good players, but you know what? That means they get stuck in Ash jail whenever their team needs someone to play Ash, and then like someone else plays Dom. If you're new to the game, I really do heavily recommend picking up Dom as a way to enter a tournament. And the training general should be full of resources specifically for Dom players because they have Hawklight, they have Casino. I can't wholeheartedly re-endorse that place because I am still banned from that channel. But uh, I don't, I can't comprehend why this place has not been like spitting out Dom mains. You would really think that is the only thing they needed to accomplish.